If you're a DM, you might have been here before. If you haven't, you will be. The players want to talk to Boblin the Goblin, not the hooded figure or the barkeep. They obsess over furniture that you only mentioned to flesh out the room a little. As always, everything that happens at the table can be an opportunity for, at a minimum, a fun memory. But being able to manage the odds of your players going on this type of tangent is a useful skill to have, and we can do this by understanding the basics of marketing. One of the best known marketing concepts is the acronym AIDA, which stands for Attention, Interest, Desire, Action. Granted, whether or not this is a useful or accurate model of consumer behavior is in question, to say the least, but it still gives us a way to approach the end goal of having the players engage with the thing we want them to, the quintessential marketing challenge for all dungeon masters. Attention is an area over which the DM has a level of influence that real businesses would, and certainly have, killed for. You have complete control over what gets emphasis and detail, what gets downplayed and glossed over, and you can even stay silent on things you don't want your players to have on their mind. If mastered, this skill of directing attention lets you guide your players away from things that aren't on your agenda without ever having to say no. But remember, marketing doesn't compel, it just proposes. When you actively prevent players from turning their attention to something other than what you want, that's when the feeling of being railroaded starts to creep in. So let them go down whichever path they'd like, and use not just your descriptions and responses, but your tone, delivery, and body language to express how much attention is warranted. It's a way to communicate, it's safe to ignore this, or, guys, this is important, without actually saying it out loud. Interest isn't something that automatically follows attention. You experience this when you notice ads you think are entertaining or aesthetically pleasing, but you couldn't care less about the product. Fortunately, this is something intuitive to DMs and players alike. A holy avenger loses most of its luster without a paladin to make the most of it. As you draw attention to the hook, make it clear that there's bait on it. Give enough information to let the player characters believe there may be something to be gained, or that the thing that caught their attention is consequential, meaningful. There are two broad categories of things that induce interest: narrative fulfillment and mechanical benefits, story and power. Do what it takes to communicate to your players that one or both of these are on offer, if only they'd bite. Desire is a little harder to disentangle from interest, but think of it as the upgrade from, that seems nice, to, I want that, or better yet, I need that. This means providing additional information that builds on a vaguely positive perception of something and turns it into a clear understanding of its benefits and uniqueness. Maybe you've caught the interest of the party's artificer with the fact that there's a junkyard just outside the city. What would make it desirable would be hinting that it's where the university sends all of its scrapped research and prototypes. The difference is the amount of detail. It uplifted a point of interest into a destination. An object of interest is considered. An object of desire inspires. In that same vein, if we're talking about rewards, not influence, but a favor from the Minister of Commerce, not loot, but a cube of force. Communicate what you must in order to spark imaginations and have the players get ahead of themselves, thinking about the possibilities. Action is the final step, now that the players have taken the bait and the hook is set. But even though you've secured buy-in from your players, there is still a way to fail, which would be if they have no clue as to what their first step should be. If you had the money right now, would you know where to go or who to talk to if you wanted to buy Wizards of the Coast from Hasbro? The task doesn't even have to be so grand. Even the simplest objective can be impossible to move towards if there isn't enough, you guessed it, information. Sometimes players will take the initiative to seek out that information in its absence, conducting research, talking to locals and experts, that sort of thing. However, there might come a time when they conclude that they've exhausted their options or that the task is impossible. Here, we return to the concept of managing attention, make them aware of things they can start working with, a weakness to exploit, opportunities that they hadn't noticed, resources they have but forgot about. If need be, have contingencies in place to deliver key information that allows players to act on the desire that you instilled. Your objective here is to make them believe once more that there is a path toward their goal and guide them back to it. Of course, the path need not be easy, where's the fun in that? But it must not vanish before their eyes. Now that we have an idea of how to use marketing to catch attention, pique interest, induce desire, and enable action, let's talk about why we might want to fail at each of these points. This is where the use of marketing diverges from its application in business, where all marketing activities ideally culminate in profit. At the table, our metric for success isn't how effectively we can make a sale, it's enjoyment and engagement, which failure at various steps in the AID model can contribute to. Failure to catch attention is the trickiest to deploy, and by nature the most subtle. The outcome we want is to convey information in the game and have it be acknowledged and understood, but just filed away because it doesn't seem important in the moment. This does take some finesse to get right. When you present some things in a way that doesn't catch attention, it serves as a contrast to what you try to highlight. This doesn't mean you should make a delivery flat most of the time. The point is that you can manage the lows of your presentation in addition to the highs. This is also a great way to implement foreshadowing and plant information which can be useful or interesting to the players in the future. Lastly, allowing time to pass with nothing to catch attention affords what I call negative space. This is room for the players, not just their characters, to rest, collect their thoughts, and reflect on the campaign so far without the pressure of the next objective looming over them. In-game, the importance of negative space is that it presents a window of time for players to create their own goals. All you need to do is to say, you have the data yourselves, what do you want to do? Giving the players the initiative in this way, by extension, allows them to have an input on pacing through entirely in-game actions. Are they starting a shopping or beach episode, or do they immediately heal up and try to pick up where they left off? By regularly providing negative space, you can ensure that both pace and direction are in line with your players' preferences. Failure to pique interest lets a DM convey information with the purpose of fleshing out the world, making it feel complete and with life of its own. The aroma of the food being served, the mud splashing at petrichor that come with rain. None of these lead to anything or alter decisions, but spending time on these details enriches the version of your world that's being built up in your players' imaginations. This is something that players can do as well. Do you state your actions in mostly mechanical terms, or do you also describe how your character goes about doing things? Keep in mind that people will appreciate this to different degrees. Someone might consider too much of this a waste of time. Another might see this as the whole point of D&D. Neither are wrong, so try to get a feel for what your group is like and adjust how much time you spend here accordingly. Failure to induce desire is strange. What does it even look like to be interested in something but not desire it? These are all the temptations in your world that the players turn down of their own accord. A locked door that gets passed by because of the risk of getting caught. A really cool magic item at the shop that no one in the party can make good use of. In other words, it's, well, interesting, but for one reason or another, it's not worth it. In the real world, maybe you like the idea of VR and entertained the idea of getting a headset, but decided against it because of its cost and the fact that you wouldn't use it much. Presenting these interesting yet undesirable things conveys to the players that they're navigating a real web of possibilities, that the world isn't just bending to their needs and wants. Though this is a fine line to walk, be prepared to deal with your players trying to pursue it anyway. Whether that means gently turning them away or starting a whole new side quest, that's for you to decide. Failure to enable action needs a little explanation because it doesn't just mean denying the information needed to act. Rather, the information you do provide should lead the players to the conclusion that their actions won't result in the outcomes they hope for. This can accomplish two things. The first is to show the scale of your world, perhaps in a literal sense with large distances and biomes that are difficult to traverse, and also to show what the characters can aspire to one day challenge or explore, but not today. The second is to remind players of the character's limitations. This shouldn't be to diminish them. The point being made is that having agency doesn't mean everything must always go their way and not everything is possible. Case in point, no one's ever excited about easy victories. The best stories are always about defying the odds and creative problem solving. Without constraints, decisions lose meaning, and if we aren't making meaningful decisions, what are we doing here? Alright, so far we've explored the use of the AIDA model for things in-game, but it can also be used to secure buy-in from players about things that happen outside the game itself. Pitching a new adventure you want to run, rules being introduced or changed mid-campaign, adding a new player to the group. Anytime you want to present an idea in the best light, marketing is your friend. One of the main criticisms of AIDA is that it doesn't consider post-purchase effects, which we all intuitively know is a big deal. Marketing is still happening during a good unboxing experience, with ongoing support and updates, and of course, with the quality of the product. In other words, marketing isn't a fix for things like bad encounters or adventures. There is no substitute for the hard work that goes into design, prep, and execution that is tailored for you and your group. Okay, I've talked a lot about how DNs can use marketing, but good players can and should use this knowledge as well. This isn't an adversarial zero-sum game where the DM is trying to sucker the players out of something. So, my recommendation for players is to understand that your DM's marketing won't be perfect, to be an active listener and make the effort to understand their intentions. Do they keep mentioning that puzzle box you gave up on after failing one check? Are they making it oddly difficult to find a bridge or a ferry to cross the river? They might just be having a hard time guiding you with as much grace, finesse, and subtlety as they'd like to. To recap, the fundamental application of marketing is delivering or withholding information to nudge players towards or away from things. Going to the next level, we understand that while the goal of a business is to sell, a DM's objective is to provide a good experience for everyone present. Keeping this in mind, deliberate failures to sell at different points in the process can serve purposes beyond moving through an adventure as quickly and efficiently as possible. And remember, if this doesn't work out, it's okay to pull back the curtain. You can just tell everyone, hey, I don't have the Underdark prepared. Let's just stay in the city for today and it'll be ready for next week. As much as I've made marketing sound like a series of Jedi mind tricks manipulating the table with no one the wiser, there's always a place for straightforward, out-of-game conversations about how everyone wants things to go. Lastly, and I cannot stress this enough, marketing will never make a bad product good. If you're confident in other aspects of running a game and have the luxury of spending some time polishing it with takeaways from marketing, that's fantastic. If you aren't though, focus on things like the setting, narrative arcs, encounter design, and so on. If you put the product first, the marketing will often take care of itself. Alright, that's all for now on marketing. I'd love to hear from you in the comments about how you apply the concepts we went over or specific moments in your games that were great examples of marketing in hindsight. Thanks for dropping by. Play well.